What is up, you guys? My name is Bakusa, and welcome to the logistics of the Ironman video. I've mentioned several times, at least in my knowledge, that I was going to be talking about this, and I never actually did. So, now I'm going to be talking about material efficiency. So, basically, one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of take a break from the Ironman, and I still kind of do, is because a lot of the endgame goals are just gathering goals. But the thing is, that's very, very time consuming, and while it's not difficult, it is very long winded, and I want to make sure that I can do this as fast and as efficiently as possible. I'm not a very efficient player, but knowing the methods on which will actually save me a lot of time will help me in the long term. So, today we're going to be doing a math heavy episode. If you don't like the math, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but this is so that we can discover together if it's more efficient to just gather the materials at tier 4, or to transmute the materials using silver that we fame farm for. And so, let's go ahead and hop right into it. The first thing that we have to understand is how much fame we get per crafted material, and we can go from there. And so here is the other clip from me, basically making all of the tier 4, 5, and 6 pairs of boots on my main account, just to kind of get that out of the way. So here it is. Alrighty, so we can see here that whenever I come to craft, I'm going to be crafting tier 4 Guardian boots. The type of boot doesn't actually matter, you'll be getting the same per tier. Tier 4 boots give 180 fame. Tier 5 boots give a total of 720 fame. And the tier 6 boots give a total of 2,160 fame. Keep in mind that I do not have premium on this account, so all these numbers will be multiplied by 1.5 to essentially match what I would be receiving on my Ironman account. And now it's time to do some serious mathematics. Alrighty, think you passed me. So the next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to decide or determine how many ores it's going to take me to make a pair of boots. Now, of course, the ores used per boot will be right here. And now we're going to have to decide, or again, determine how many ores it's going to take to make each pair of boots. For tier 4, nothing higher than that. For tier 4, we're going to actually need a total of 16 tier 4 ores to make 8 tier 4 bars. And then we're going to have to make essentially this tier 4 set of bars into tier 5 bars. It takes 3 ores per bar to go from tier 4 to tier 5. So we're going to be adding an extra, of course, 3 times 8, which is 24, but of course we can always throw it over here. 3 times 4, or 8, sorry. 3 times 8, plus the number that we needed to make the tier 4 bars to begin with, which puts us at a total of 40 ores. And now, of course, for the next one, we're going to be needing 4 ores per bar, and basically, of course, to make the 8 tier 5 bars we needed 40 ores. So let's go ahead and do the 4 ores it takes to make 1 tier 6 bar times 8 bars for 32, plus the 40 that we already used. So it would take us 72 tier 4 ores to make 8 tier 4 or tier 6 bars. So pretty good start. Now we get to move on to the next step. So, of course, to determine the number of fame per bar, it's actually rather quite easy. Using a spreadsheet, what we can do is we can just say, well, there's 8 bars, and so we can do this tile will be equal to basically D4, which is the 270 right here, divided by 8, which will give us the number that basically says the number of fame per bar, which is great. So there we go. One thing that I'm going to mention right now is also keep in mind that we will be studying these, which actually means that we can make a separate thing here, and we can essentially do this. Let me go ahead and move this down really fast. Oops. Let's go ahead and move this down to about right here or so. And we can also say fame per boot per study. And we can just easily take our number here and say D4 is equal to D4 times 3, or times 3. 3. There we go. Because essentially, if we were to study this, it would give us 540 fame for study. And essentially, this is how much fame we should expect from each, because whenever you study something, it gives you twice the fame that you got for crafting it, equaling a total of 3x as far as like per material go, basically. Now, if we're doing fame per bar for study, all we have to do now is, of course, say is equal to D7 times 3. And this is how much fame we'll be getting per bar if we study the materials, which we probably will. Most likely will. So that's something to know. So now we actually have something that shows how much fame we'll be receiving per bar. We also have the number of ores that we're going to have to gather. So now one of the things that we can do is we can basically just make up an example. Let's say I wanted to gain, if I want 2 million fame in boot crafting, this is how it's going to break down. Let's go ahead and make it like that. There we go. So if I wanted to get 2 million fame in boot crafting, we're going to determine how much basically fame, or how many of different items I would have to craft in order to get there. And so let's go ahead and start on that. So if I was making tier 4 boots, I would have to say is equal to 2 million divided by the slot over there, which was D4, which is basically the number of fame that I'm given per boot. So it's going to take us roughly 7,400 pairs of boots for not studying, and for the higher tiers, it's going to take 600 boots for tier 6, 1,800 for this. But also keep in mind, boys, that if we are studying, we can basically say it is equal to the tile above us, which is I4 times 3. And this is, I4 divided by 3, because this is actually the number of boots we're crafting, not how much fame we're getting. So this is how many boots we would have to craft to get 2 million fame if we're studying. Now, the biggest thing about this is we can double check if this is right or not. I mean, intuitively, we can understand that if we were getting 3,000 fame per pair of tier 6 boot that we craft, if we study that, we get a total of roughly 10,000. And of course, 10,000 times 200 is about 2 million. So it makes intuitive sense that this is about what we would see. So we know that we're kind of on the right track as far as that's concerned. Now we have to move on to the biggest step. The biggest reason why I'm doing this is we have to decide what's more worth it. To gather less ores, but spend more time fame farming for silver, or if we should gather more ores and not spend time gathering silver, or if we can meet somewhere in the middle for however much fame that we're trying to get. So let's go ahead and get to that. So if we already have a little tab over here that says how many ores we would have to use per boot for tier 4 or higher, and so we can see here that if we just take the number of boots that we're going to be crafting for studying, we can just multiply that by 16. So we go for, or we can even do one better and say this is equal to I4, which is the number right here where it says 7,400, times the corresponding one over here, which is going to be D6. And so this is going to take this number and multiply it together to see just how many ores we need, which is going to be a pretty solid 118,000 ores. We can click and drag over to push over here, and so now we see that if we need 72 ores, we can go ahead and double check our math here and make sure that the equation is doing exactly what we want it to. So if we wanted to make 600 pairs of boots, 600 pairs of boots times 72 ores, looks about right. 44,000 seems to be about right, so it looks like our math is just where we need it to be. Of course, it wasn't exact because I rounded 617, but whatever. We can even do that. 617 times 40 or times 72. It's 44,424. Basically the same. Not bad at all. Awesome. You love to see it. But there's also a decimal there if that's where you're wondering where the number went. But anyway, now we can do the same thing for not studying. We're just going to be doing the exact same thing here, of course, but we're going to be doing it with the study values instead of the non-study values, of course. So we're just going to be doing the same exact thing, except we're going to be doing I5, because that is the study number of boots that we would have to make, times the corresponding number of ores that we would need. And we go ahead and drag it over. So if we basically were to craft tier 6 boots, we would actually need a pretty solid number less of ores if we were making tier 6 versus making tier 4, which isn't surprising, of course, considering we can see here that the fame is almost, it is 10 times higher. Like, it's not surprising that we would need considerably less ores. One thing to note is that if we were to take our hours spent gathering, right? Because if we're going to be gathering these, we're only going to be gathering tier 4. The whole thing that I'm trying to figure out right now is it more worth my time to gather tier 4 and then craft, or is it more worth my time to gather tier 4, then transmute, then craft? And so we're always going to be assuming that I'm gathering tier 4 materials either way. Assuming that I'm gathering approximately 2,000 at 2,000 ores per hour, which is pretty reasonable, at 2,000 flat tier 4 ores per hour, which is achievable, I'm pretty sure. Even if it's not, we'll talk more about that later, but let's just assume that this is the number that we're looking for. And this, of course, since it's a spreadsheet, we can change the values as needed, which is perfect. So if I needed this many ores at study rates, which 2,000 ores per hour for not studying, and then of course the 2,000 ores per hour with studying. So let's go ahead and change that. We are going to need to spend how many hours gathering? Let's go ahead and oh wait, what did I just do? Okay, there we go. If we were to spend, how many hours would we be spending gathering? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So let's actually move this to right here. Oops. Hours spent gathering. Let's change that to right there because that's more accurate to what I'm doing right now. Go ahead and make this a little bigger so it makes a touch more sense, I suppose. Why not? So hours spent gathering, if we are gathering 2,000 ores per hour, it's going to be equal to, let's actually do this then, yeah? Let's make this a little easier for us to, so we can really edit this, right? Let's type in ores, that's not how you spell ores, per hour. And let's do 2,000 here. And now we can do this for study, or not study, no study, and for study. So now we have 2,000 ores per hour as our gathering rate. So we're going to be taking the number of ores required for no study is going to be 118,000 rather, 118,518 ores divided by, or actually I can make that more configurable here, I7 divided by our rate that we gave ourselves for ores per hour at H12. So this is how many hours I would have to spend gathering ores, assuming that I was crafting and not studying. Now, assuming that I was studying, I can just drag this down like that, except we need to change this to 12, because I think you can put like a cash symbol or a money symbol, and I think it holds that value, but whatever. So if we were going to be studying this, it looks to be roughly 20 hours of essentially gathering to get this amount of 2 million fame. So that's pretty decent, but now we have to look at the other ways of doing this, as in, if I were to gather the ores and then transmute the ores, how much time would I save gathering to gather this amount of fame? Now, this isn't an exact amount of fame. This is just kind of a number that I pulled out of nowhere whenever I was talking on stream, and I'm just going to keep using this number as an example so we can use it more so for like a fame per hour if we really wanted to do that. And so that's probably what I'm going to stick to. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part. So I went ahead and added a cost per bar if we were to be transmuting. And if you guys want to double check me, of course, if you want to make a tier 4 bar, you are required to have, or tier 2, tier 4 ores, which of course we don't have to transmute for that, so the cost is 0. For tier 5 bars, we're actually going to need 3 titanium ores, and then the tier 4 bar, which costs 0, so that doesn't add any extra cost. The 3 ores are going to cost us 1107 for the cost, but the tier 6 ores, it takes 4 of them to make a single tier 6 bar. Bear in mind that we ended up getting 5,000. This is because, of course, you need to get to get these ores essentially up to tier 6, you have to make them into tier 4 ores, which takes 1476, which I will go ahead and add up for you on screen, even though I've already done it. 1476 plus the 4 ores that are then turned into runite ores, which is, of course, 2363, so plus 2363, plus the initial 1107 silver it takes to make the bar in the first place. So we're looking at a total of 4,946 silver per bar, and that is what we have right here. So now that we've confirmed that, this is how much silver it would cost for me to make a single bar. So of course, silver cost per boot is going to be the exact same thing as this, of course, which is going to be equal to D12 times the essential 8. It's just 8 because you're going to be using 8 bars, right? Which of course here is 0. But for the rest of them, this is how much silver we can expect to spend on a pair of boots if you're transmuting flat tier 4 ores up to tier 6. So, not bad. And now we get to move on to the next step, which of course is determining basically how much silver I would have to spend if I was going up to tier 6. Basically, if I decided to make 205 tier 6 boots, how much silver would I expect to spend? So let's go ahead and do that. So, cost for 2 million fame would be as follows. It would be for tier 4s, if studying, because we're going to be studying. I guess let's even just take out, do the 2 things. So for study, no study, and for studying. Because might as well have both, right? Just in case. Because I mean, there is another option that I will talk about here in just a moment. So if we take our is equal to the cost per bar, or cost per boot times boot, which will give us just the silver cost for getting however many fames that I'm looking for, which in this case is 2 million. So let's do that. Let's do D12 times. So quick edit while editing here. So you'll see that I actually ended up basically having a thing where I ended up taking the bar cost instead of the boot cost. I do fix this later, but it takes me some time to get there. Just know that for now, this tab isn't quite accurate, but I will fix it later, I promise. I4, I believe? I4, yes. Which is going to be 0, because of course this cost is going to cost us 0, because we're not spending any money here. However, for this one, we're going to be spending a little bit of money, because of course the silver cost, it's not surprising that it's going to be higher. So, if we look here, it looks like we're going to be spending roughly 8, or how much is that? Yeah, 8 million silver in order to get our amount that we're looking for. If we're studying, at the silver cost per boot, this is how much it would cost us, essentially, in silver to get this amount. Now, see, the thing is, though, right? 8 million silver, it's actually not that much. But of course, if we... Now we're going to start looking towards how much time this would essentially take. So let's go ahead and move on to that part. Alrighty, so for tier 4, I went ahead and made this little thing. Basically, this is how much time that we're going to be spending roughly money making. Of course, for tier 4, it's going to be 0, but we're going to go ahead and get the equations in place now. So here's how this is going to work. If we made 400k per hour, we can simply take the amount of money it would cost if we were not studying, which would be equal to whatever number is in D16, and then we can divide it by the hourly rate at E22, which basically would give us the value that we are going to receive if we were making money. We also need to make sure that this stays at E22, so let's do that. If we were making this much money per hour, and this is how much money we needed to make, this is how many hours we would have to do this. So there we go. And then we're pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing here. But the problem is, of course, that it's going to be taking this value, which we don't want. So we're probably going to have to input these manually. I'm sure there's a way to do this properly, but I'm going to be doing this manually. So I'll catch you guys whenever I reach tier 5 when we get a non-arbitrary 0 answer. Fantastic. So now we are officially at the tier 5, which means that we're actually going to get numbers that are non-zero because, of course, if you're not spending money, you don't need to make money. So we're going to be seeing that for the non-study, we're going to be having to use the E16 value that we have right up there, and then divide it by our E26 value, which is the amount of money that we need divided by the amount of money we make per hour, to roughly pull out to 5.125 hours. Not too bad after all. We can click drag that down, of course, to studying it, which should, of course, make this less, but let me make sure that this value stays the same. So we need to make this back up to E26. Great. That's still wrong. Alrighty, so it looks like I ended up making him oops. So I went ahead and fixed what I did wrong. Basically, I will make sure that I note later early in the video that I did mess this up. I basically had it on silver cost per bar instead of silver cost per boot. So everything should be good now. So this gives us a much more accurate reading instead of the mess that I ended up just getting. So now we can see that if we were to be making tier 5 boots, at 400k per hour, we're going to be needing a total of 41 hours of fame farming, or 13.6 if we're studying, which we will be. So now we can go ahead and start filling out the rest of this table, which should be easier now that we actually have the damn thing working. So pretty much all we have to do is say, which this one, for not studying, we're going to have to spend a total of whatever number is in E16, again, divided by the hourly rate, which is now going to be an F26. Fantastic. Now we're going to click drag this down. We're going to have to fix it though, because that is obviously wrong, and set this to E26 value, which will give us a more appropriate 5 hours of money making if studying. And now we just got to do the exact same thing just one more time, which is going to be the price of not studying, which is going to be E16, sorry. E16 for not studying, divided by our new hourly rate, assuming that we were making 2 million silver per hour. We're going to be spending 8 hours making money if not studying, or let's go ahead and fix this value real quick. 2.5, basically 2 3/4 for making money when doing tier 5 stuff. So that's not bad. So now we're going to be doing the last one, tier 6, really quickly, and then we can start moving on to the time total spent if doing a certain method. And so I'm just going to go ahead and fill this whole thing out, show it to you at the end, because it's the same process, just the same exact thing. I'm going to go ahead and fill this part of the spreadsheet out, and I'll catch you guys when I'm done. Alrighty, so apparently I ended up forgetting to do it. But basically, we went ahead and filled out the hours needed for gathering for tier 5 and 6. For the number of ores that I would need, of course, for getting my 2 million fame. So now this spreadsheet's getting kind of messy, but I will go back over everything in the end so you guys can kind of track exactly what happened. So again, let's now move on to the next step, which is going to be discerning the total amount of time needed to get 2 million fame doing the different methods that we have. So we're going to be studying this no matter what. Pretty much, I'm going to go ahead and just do the studying part of it, and then you can probably just assume that everything else is just 3 times longer if I'm not studying, or 3 times more expensive. I think that's pretty easy to see because, of course, it's 3 times more efficient if you're studying it, as far as fame goes. So, let's go ahead and make a new thing. Total time taken for the different methods. This is going to be for no transmuting at all. For studying, of course. I'm going to go ahead and put a note. This is all studied values. So, if I wasn't transmuting at all, I would have to spend just the time gathering. And assuming that I was studying, this one right here would easily just be equal to the time spent gathering, which would be 13 or I13. So not too bad. So this basically says that if I wanted to get tier 4 boots all the way up to 2 million fame, I would need a total of 39,000 ores if I was studying, which makes intuitive sense because if I'm gathering 2,000 per ore, it would take roughly 20 hours. That sounds about right. So let's do transmuting to tier 5. How much time would it take? Okay, so let's just take the middle route here. For these values, I'm going to be taking time transmuting to tier 5 at the middle value of 1 mil silver per hour, as far as the money making side of this thing goes. So for tier 5, I would have to, essentially, if I was studying and I wanted to make tier 5s, I would have to get this number of ores right here. So it would be equal to the J8, I believe. The J8 divided by the H12, which is going to be giving us our, basically, how many hours we would spend gathering the materials. Plus, we have to spend the time making the money to transmute these materials up, right? And so the time it would take for us to make however much silver. Well, how much silver do we have to make? We already calculated that. For studying, it's going to take us the E17. E17 divided by the hourly rate, which we have already discerned to be F26, which is going to be 1 million silver per hour. So it's going to take us roughly 17.8 hours, assuming that we're making 1 million silver per hour. Pretty decent, I have to admit. I'm okay with that. So now, let's do transmuting at tier 6 with 1 million silver per hour. So we're going to be doing the exact same thing again. We're going to be taking the number of ores that we need, which is going to be equal to K8, sorry, K8, divided by the number of hours spent mining, which is divided by the number of ores we mine per hour, and then we add on the amount of silver that we need, which is going to take us this number right here, which is going to be F17, divided by the hourly rate for gathering at tier 6 at 1 million, which is going to be F30. Here we go, F30. It's going to take us roughly 15.5 hours to get this. So we can see that it is more time efficient to transmute these materials into higher tier things. Now, of course, if we were, say, getting 2 million silver per hour, which I feel like is not unrealistic if you're doing Slayer tier corrupted dungeons consistently and efficiently, I feel like it would be very easy to pull 2 mil per hour. And so that would most certainly be something that we could include. However, I'm going to be leaving it at 1 mil per hour. So this basically is the whole point of this whole video, was to essentially show that my pathing to starting to max out my crafting skills when I get there is going to be to, of course, gather the tier 4 materials required, gather the silver required, transmute the materials from tier 4 all the way up to tier 6, and then craft. It'll save me hours of time. And 2 million silver, is that as much as I need for level 100? Probably not. But it's just a sample number. Basically, one of the things that we can see from this is that it's going to take me essentially 4 less hours if I do this tier 6 at 1 mil an hour method, right? But the thing is, that's actually a pretty solid percentage, right? And so I guess we could technically do that, but that's kind of just beyond the point. I'm trying to say that it's most efficient for me to spend my time gathering the tier 4 materials and then transmuting them rather than just gathering the tier 4 materials outright. And I also wanted to say here, because I had a lot of people asking in my stream that I did today, that why don't I gather in high tier? Well, gathering in high tier is not efficient because it takes longer to gather the materials. The materials that you find are usually small nodes, and so you're finding smaller quantities of slightly higher tier materials whenever you could just spend the time making silver and transmuting them up. It's just faster. And so thank you guys for watching this. I hope this video at least made sense. I'm going to go back over pretty much everything that we did, but this is the end of the video. So to recap pretty much how we got here, we needed to find out how much fame that we were given per boot that we craft, which we had 270, 1080, and 3240, pretty much as we crafted tier 4, 5, and 6 boots respectively. If we study that, we triple that value up to the following values here. Now, we know how many ores that we use, tier 4 ores, that we use to craft these boots, assuming that we transmute. We did that already, 16, 40, and 72 for the respective tiers. And so if we were to convert this into, if we converted those ores into bars, this is the number of essentially fame that we would receive per bar of the respective tier. So for per tier 6 bar, we're going to be receiving essentially this value here as and so this is the number of bars that we would use, which would be 8. And this is how much fame that we would receive for using the bars, of course. And so this is how much fame you get per bar, and we triple that if we're studying it. Okay, if we wanted to reach a finite number of fame, we have to take into account a couple of things. How many boots would it take to get there, which is pretty easy to get, because of course if we want 2 million fame, we just take the 2 million fame and divide it by however much fame you get given per boot, depending on whether or not you're studying. Okay, and then we can take the number of boots that we have to craft, and then multiply it by the number of ores that we need to craft each boot, which gives us the number of ores that we would need to craft the set number of boots that we would need to get this much fame, right? And then we can decide, well, we know that, of course, if we're gathering this many ores per hour, this is how many ores, or how many hours you would spend gathering the ores for the tier 4, 5, and 6 for the set of ores if you're transmuting. But of course, if you're transmuting, you're going to be spending silver, which means you're going to have to spend time making that silver. And if you were making tier 6 boots, it's going to cost you. Essentially, we decided, we basically got the amount of silver we would have to spend per bar at tier 5 and 6. At tier 4, it's 0 because we're not transmuting anything at tier 4. And then we used the price of the bars, which we have 8,000 here for the boots, essentially. We would spend 8,856 per pair of tier 5 boots and 39,000 per pair of tier 6 boots. And then we would take that number and multiply by the number of boots that we had to craft up here to get the amount of silver that we would need in order to reach our objective of 2 million fame. At tier 4, of course, it would take no hours worth of time because you're not making any money. At tier 5, at making the 400,000, the 1 million, and 2 million silver per hour, it would take you this many hours in their respective tables, of course, to get the silver required, and so on and so forth. And then we can finally take all of these numbers that we've had together and say, well, if we weren't transmuting, we only have to gather the materials, we don't have to spend time making money, and so we would spend 19.7 hours gathering if we were studying, which we will be probably. If we wanted to transmute all up to tier 5, we would have to spend this many hours. We'd have to spend 24,000 ores and 2,000 ores an hour, so about roughly 12 hours gathering the ores. But we'd also would need 5.4 million silver to get all of those ores to tier 5 to make tier 5 bars, which would take roughly 5 hours. And so we would end up pulling 17.8 hours instead, and so on and so forth. Now, once I reach level 60, maybe I would find it more efficient, even more efficient, to do tier 7 swords, which is something that I may consider doing. But this is just something that I wanted to kind of post on the side so that you guys understand in the future why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I will reference this video in the Ironman series because I'm not going to go through this explanation again for obvious reasons. Thank you guys for watching. If you got all the way through, comment at the bottom that math sucks, or comment in the comment section that math sucks. And I will catch you guys in the next video, whenever that is. Have a good one, guys. I hope you found this useful. Alrighty, guys, so I wanted to go ahead and kind of cut away, mostly because I actually, pretty much at the end of the video, I just kind of ranted here for a bit about basically the efficiency of what I was going to be doing. Essentially, you guys already know because I already went through, basically did everything on screen. I am going to be focusing on mostly gathering low tier materials, transmuting them up, then crafting them. I did also, of course, go back over my spreadsheet here, but honestly, if you guys actually made it to the end of this video, I assume that you guys at least kind of followed pretty much what happened, but even if you didn't, the overall consensus that was really needed here was just to understand that it's more efficient to do it like this. And my game is lagging apparently, but that's okay. And so that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. We're going to be gathering materials, we're going to be transmuting them, and then we are going to craft. I think we also will start to move up to tier 7 once we reach level 60, which could make the efficiency even better. But we don't have to worry about this for a while because there's still other things that we need to do. But basically, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you made it this far and you enjoy my content, I do officially now have a join button. The perks are pretty minimal at best, honestly, but I did make it very nice and cheap for you guys. It's more for those who actually want to support me as a creator, because I know some of you guys have been very kind in the past and have been asking me if there was any way that you could do so. Well, now there actually is a way. If you join as a level 1 member, you'll get access to a few like icons, of course, depending on how long you've been in my quote-unquote little channel thingy, or also you get these emojis that you could use, or like basically little Twitch icon chat things that you could use, or whatever, or sub emotes, that's what they're called on Twitch. You can use the sub emotes basically inside my Twitch or my YouTube streams whenever I stream here. Also, once you reach level 2, you'll be getting a whole bunch of other stuff. If you click the join button, you will be able to see all the things. With the main noted things that I will say is I do play games like Factorio and stuff like that. So at levels 2 and 3, you will get access to, at level 2 and higher, you will get access to a Minecraft realm server that I will be starting in 2021, and I'll be playing on there occasionally with you guys if anyone's on there in the future. I know the sub count of this channel isn't insane or anything like that, but of course, it's more so about the people who want to support me. If they do want to support me, this is your chance. Thank you so much for being here for me, guys. I really do appreciate it. And if you watch to the end of this video, say math sucks and that you don't want to watch another video like this, but it sucks because you're going to watch another one whenever I upload it about something else at some point, because I do find these videos kind of fun to make, and I hope that this video was informative. If there's any other Ironman out there who watched this video, tell me in the comments. I think that'd be really interesting to know if any other Ironman actually got here. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one whenever that is.